Hi, it is now about 8 p.m. in Los Angeles on Thursday, January 19th, and it is about 11 p.m. in Florida, yes?
Oh yes,
So
yeah.
we have Liana Rui, the beautiful and talented Liana Rui, joining us from Florida. Thank you so much for staying up. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited
Oh,
I get the chance to talk to you and ask you all sorts of questions and all this kind of stuff. So,
I'm
before we begin, we're going to just jump right in and listen to some of Liana's music. And there you go. I've seen Liana perform live. It was wonderful. I wish I could see her perform more. Um, First of all, how are you? How have you been?
I've been doing great. It's so nice to see you again. It feels like a million years.
It has.
Um,
It's like at least a year since, or more, 2 years.
Longer, right? 2 years? Like, how does it even? I mean, it feels like, so much has happened in that time, but like, man, I feel like it was yesterday. We were at the Vasquez Rocks, and with your
Oh yeah,
famous
we have
dress.
pictures.
It's iconic.
I know.
Every
Where
time I
Star
see a
Trek was
red
shot.
dress, what?
Where Star Trek was shot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and that
Westworld
the
too.
Westworld episode that you
Yeah.
mentioned. So
Oh
just some
yeah.
background. I met Liana a few years ago here in Los Angeles, where she was finishing her studies at USC. And it was a degree in, is it music? Is the
Yes,
official
yes.
title?
Yes, music degree. Yeah.
Um, so actually, let's just start from the very beginning. Who are you from and all that? Tell us where you're from, where you grew up, who it was like where you grew up.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in this very house. I was
Wow.
basically born in this room that I'm sitting right now in
Wow.
Palm Beach,
Okay.
Florida. Yeah, I spent all of my formative years until college years here, and yeah, we live in the suburbs. It's really peaceful. It was like an ideal. I was homeschooled, so I spent so much time in this house actually practicing, studying. My parents both work from home as well, so we were always together, and that was amazing because it allowed me time to really grow a close bond with my parents, and it allowed me time to really focus on the violin because I knew from a young age this is what I needed to do. There was nothing else that I could imagine devoting my life to the way I have to music. So yeah, I was lucky to grow up in a really calm environment, and I think that helped me to bring some of that sort of like, because music, it's really
Hmm.
tumultuous and it's
Yeah.
really intense. There's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of emotions you have to channel into that. So to have that balance was really key for me growing up.
That's really great. So I've got lots of questions for you already. But how did you said you knew from a really young age that you wanted to play violin. So how did that happen? I'll tell you, I played viola when starting fourth grade, and it
Oh,
only
that's
started,
right.
yeah. And here's how like amateur this was. Some teacher walked in and said, "Who wants to play, viola and violin and cello?" And literally, I had no idea what it was because I came to the U.S. when I was in second grade, and I think this was fourth grade. And so people raised their hand, and so I just raised my hand, and that's how it started. I had no clue. So I wasn't like you, where you knew. So how did you know what happened, and how did you start down the road?
Yeah, well, first I wanted to play the trumpet, and because I heard Wynton Marsalis, and I was like, oh, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And I started asking my parents, like, can I play the trumpet? Can you get me a trumpet? And they were like, well, you gotta have all your adult teeth first. And at the time, I was like 3. And I said,
Uh-huh.
so when am I gonna get all of my adult teeth? And they said, oh, when you're about 10. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm never gonna be 10. So then they started playing violin music for me. And I heard it, and I was just like, what is that? And then my mom said, that's a violin. And I said, can I play that? Like, can I have a violin? And every day, like 10 times a day. Can I have a violin? Mommy, can you get me a violin? And eventually they grew tired of this constant like demands for a violin. So they got me a violin and they took me to the local teacher. And I fell in love with it from the first day. I remember just picking up the instrument and the way it feels and just the smell of the wood too. I just
Yeah.
felt so connected to it. And it's like when you play, it's right next to your heart. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
something so intimate about that. As a child, it's like it was even more about the physicality of playing rather than the sound, because kids, when they're learning, it's like
Hmm.
very screechy. My parents put
Yeah.
up with that for like for the first year. And so and then as I kept playing, the more I wanted to play, the more I wanted to make a beautiful sound. And that's what really drove me. And then when I was about 13, I had the opportunity to study with a couple of amazing teachers, David and Linda Saran. And they were retired at the time, and they agreed to teach me even though they were retired. But at that point I needed to make the decision I would go for to be a professional. So yeah, 13, I was like, absolutely, this is like the
Wow.
most like
That's great.
wonderful thing I could ask for. So
And
yeah.
was there nothing else that struck you as much? Pretty much, it was just music and violin, and there it was.
Yeah,
I
I
know.
mean, I love poetry. I love writing. I love literature. I actually got a minor in poetry composition when I was in conservatory. But I, the thing about it for me is I would write a lot. Like I would write, but I would feel unwell after I wrote. I would write for, a few hours, and
Really?
then
Okay.
I would feel sick. I don't know why. It was like I felt like I would get so into it, but at the end I would be sweating. I wouldn't have like gone to like
Wow.
eat
Okay.
dinner, and I would just feel like, I don't know, it's an unhealthy sort of fascination with it rather
Hmm.
than music, which for me was like it enriched me. After a practice session, I feel amazing. Like I feel
Yeah.
so um I like feel on fire, and then I'm just like I can't wait to go to bed so I can get up in the morning and keep practicing, like explore what I've been doing from the day before. So yeah, there was nothing else that sort of lit my fire in that way.
That's really great. Uh, and I recognize many things you're talking about because having played viola, it's physical. Like the sound and the vibration from the instrument is really something else. You kind of feel it, and you have to be really very in tune with it. So it's a really wonderful experience. Um, did you find that you um, like hearing music and tuning and things like that, just kind of some of the mechanics, just even the finger work came and the bow work came easily to you, or was it a lot of work? What do you remember from that sort of learning experience?
Yeah, that learning experience. The learning curve of the violin is definitely like that,
Uh-huh.
because it's not really a natural thing, because something that's interesting, I mean, all of your weight is concentrated on this side of the body. And
Uh-huh.
actually, if you're not careful, you can develop spine problems. I've seen a lot of people who've been playing for years, have to have spinal surgery even because
Wow.
so
Okay.
much of it, you're emoting, you're playing like this, and then the spine is twisting. But yeah, for me, I felt like I didn't really think so much about that when I was young, because it's like when you're a little kid, you're just like,
You're
oh, I
just
just want to
playing,
play.
right? You're just messing
Yeah,
around.
just
Yeah.
playing around, you're just messing around. And then it's like I had points in my life where like things came more easily to me, like especially the things that were like quantifiable, like like intonation. I feel like it can be wrong or right. What I mean?
Hmm.
There's not like there is a little room for arguments, but not that much, you know what I mean? But what's always more something I have to like really make myself like think and analyze a lot more is the bow arm, in terms of like what kind of sound do I want? It's like sound is like you can't really describe it in a way that's like concrete. It's like
Hmm.
warm sound, but
Right.
there's a temperature. Like, what does that mean? Like when you are listening, or some people are like, oh, I want that sound to be like a placid lake, and it's
Hmm.
like okay, I guess, you wouldn't like have a lot of dynamic range, but it's like the phrase should be connected, but it's like there are so many abstract ways to think about sound. Like, so for me, I remember a key moment when I was about like 15. I was like, I don't really get this. I didn't really
Hmm.
get, and so I kind of went on a journey with that. And I think it was honestly when I was in my sophomore year of conservatory that I had a breakthrough with that.
Okay.
I was playing a recital, and I remember I was playing Beethoven 7 and I was playing the Mozart E
Hmm.
minor sonata. And, both of those works, they're really complex. They have a lot of romantic energy, but brooding energy. And there's themes of loss, there's themes of love, there's themes of secrecy. And a lot of these things happen to kind of relate to where I was at that point in my life. And it was like one day I was playing and I know it sounds so cheesy, but my heart like opened and I realized
Mm.
I can play my life into the instrument. Like I can express what I feel in everyday life and play. I can always like find the words to talk about life, but I can find the words on the instrument. And it was like an overnight change for me. I had like my teacher and my colleagues coming up to me saying like, "Where did you get that sound from? Like, what did you
Hmm.
do?" Like, and it was like there was almost like this kind of like desperation from people. They were like, "What is it that changed you? Like, we need to know." And I was like, "I honestly can't even explain it." So again, that's like a very abstract experience. So
But I think it rings true because that's really the goal of every artist, right? Is to
you know,
be able to express your heart through your instrument, whether you be an actor, a musician, whatever. And at that point, it's you really it's not something of words, right? It's not something of, that it's an emotion, it's a feeling, and that's transmitted through all that. Um, so I kind of understand. I mean, it's one of those things, and that's the mark, I think, of a true artist is when you can do that. And very often,
mhm,
a lot of artists can't really articulate what they're doing. Um,
mhm.
so I think that's when when you can actually emote, express, uh, again, to be a little cheesy, when you and the instrument are one, right? So
Yeah.
it's very much that. And then something you said earlier, I remember my viola teacher. She was a violinist actually, but she said everybody thinks it's about the fingers and the technique, but it's really the bow. It's how you express how the phrases and all the expressions and the phrasing and the language of the bow. And so I can understand that because the left hand is really technique, and the right hand, the bow, is the expression of it.
Mhm.
At least that's what I remember. So I never went as far as you did, though, not nearly. Um, so here's a question. I've actually asked you this before and about how many hours you practice and what you do, because I think a lot of people don't realize the extent to which, how much work and training and, dedication goes into something like this.
Mhm.
So tell us about what your, you know, practice or, a routine is every day, and how much you work on the violin and what kinds of things you do when you
Yeah.
rehearse something.
Mhm. Like when I was young, I actually used to practice a lot more than I do now. Like because little kids can practice a lot for some
Yeah.
reason. When I was, all the way until conservatory, I used to practice like about 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day. That was like pretty much every day for me. I mean, it helped I wasn't in a regular school, so I
Hmm.
cannot even imagine, how some people manage to manage that schedule, but I now my routine is I practice 6 hours a day. I always make sure to get in. That's my sacred time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because I have to guard that time. And then so for in those hours, I will do like 1 hour of technique work. I have this technique pump that basically the theory of this pump is that every single note you can play on the violin, you play. Like, every single
Oh,
shift you can do it. And you work it into this like sort of regimen where you hit it all, and
wow.
then
Okay.
so I do that and I do
So
stuff
just for
with
the people
cello.
that don't know, by the way, the shifting is when actually, can you see it? There you go. Actually, you should show it when you're moving and sliding up and down. So you're covering a lot
Oh,
of
you've got
territory
good
as you have.
technique, you know? You've
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, all the
Once
piano
upon a
lessons.
time. I'm faking it now. But that's a lot of territory because I mean you can shift all the way back and forth. So you're doing a lot in an hour, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to cover, and so there's that, and then I swap that with another routine that I do, which is more sort of musically focused, but it's like, you're doing stuff where like double stops where you play two notes at once in different configurations, and then you just, you play. It's almost like you play a little song with that, but it's a song with a purpose. Um, so it's fun. I actually really love that kind of work because that's what sharpens you, and then after you do it, you feel great. It's like you worked out, but you're not tired at the end.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
so then after that, I'll go into working on like upcoming concert rep. If I have a schedule of like where each work needs to be by a certain date, and I'll be like either like doing slow practice, making sure everything's perfect, and then, like experimenting with the ideas, musical phrasing, and this kind of thing. And then every day I record myself to have sort of sit in the teacher's chair, so to speak,
Oh,
with my
okay. Hmm.
and that's important to be able to be objective and be like, oh, I notice so many things when I'm not distracted by actually playing. It's like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, and then I make notes for myself. Sometimes I play for my mom almost every single day. She's not a musician, but like she has such a great ear and she makes me nervous. So it's amazing. She has amazing ideas. It's like incredible. Sometimes I'll like play something and I'll be like, I'll ask her what did you think? Like, do you have any suggestions? And she'll say, you're rushing here. Or she'll say,
That's
I feel
great.
like this part could be more expansive. I was like, you know what? That's exactly right. Like I hadn't thought of that, but that's exactly what I need to be doing. And it's incredible. I mean, she spent like so many years going to music lessons with me and like
That's great.
observing
Yeah, that's
waves work. And she still listens to me practice too. And it's amazing because like, I mean, I recognize it's kind of like a rare relationship to have with your mother
that's
as
amazing. It's an amazing relationship, it sounds like. Yeah, that's really
it
wonderful.
is. I'm so lucky. Yeah.
No, that's great. And it's funny because I was thinking I think one thing about this is I understand it. I understand it. I haven't done it because I play viola, but I always still think that this kind of thinking, looking at this transfers to other things. Like imagine if as an actor, literally like we played every part of our instrument every day, and then like as you did, say you did combinations or you did different things like that. I mean, honestly, I don't think any of us are that disciplined on the acting side. So but I would probably be a much better actor if I did that. That's my thought. But if I did all those things and then prep certain pieces or just to have in a repertoire to pull out things like that. So you work much harder than I do, I can say that for sure. um go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh
Were you
no,
about?
I was just gonna say I don't know about that. I mean, I feel like the instrument is finite in a way. Acting is infinite.
Well, they're just different beasts, is what I think of it, because they're more but they're all about expression and human emotion and just knowing where all those things are.
Mhm.
um so when you say conservatory, is that when you graduated, what, technically graduated high school probably around 17, I'm guessing, and then
Yeah,
you went to conservatory? Is that
yeah.
how it works? And how many years was conservatory?
That was for 4 years. So it's like an undergrad, but you don't really have as many like classes in terms of like math and science, like,
Right.
general education. You do have some, but they're really, depending on the conservatory you go to, some of them are more rigorous, less rigorous. My conservatory, it was kind of do what you want kind of
Hmm.
thing. So, we actually had some amazing like general education teachers. I remember one professor, actually, he taught at Harvard sometimes. His name was James Klein, and he was
Hmm.
so amazing. I mean, I that's honestly something I miss a lot about my time there was listening to his classes. But yeah, so I was there for 4 years, and yeah, after that I did my master's.
So, when I met you, were you doing your master's already, or were you finishing conservatory?
Master's,
You're
yeah.
doing your master's then, and was that 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
Okay, great. And so it's been a few years since then. Um, we are actually going to run out of time very soon. It's gone by very quickly.
Oh, went fast.
I know. So we're going to have to do this again. But let's jump ahead a little bit. Just update us on what you're doing now and um, what you've been doing lately in Florida. And I noticed you've been traveling to all sorts of different places and performing. Tell us about how all those things are going. How's that?
Oh, it's been really, I've so lucky I get to travel as much as I do. The past year, I was doing residencies. I did one in Virginia at the Heifetz Music Institute in the spring, and then I was at Windwood Music Festival in Alberta, Canada. Since then, I started my job at the Venice Symphony in Venice, Florida.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I work in San Antonio sometimes. Upcoming, I've got recitals in Boston, Bloomington. Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff. I'm taking auditions too, so it's like there's always stuff there's always a lot of work to be done.
I'm sure. So, how does this is something I ask everyone because I think it's the nuts and bolts of how you sort of keep things moving and all the balls you have to juggle in the air um, are kind of hard for everybody and as an artist, right? So, um, obviously, for things you do you hear about them and you audition, including local and in other cities? Do you send them a tape or there are pieces they want you to play? How does that kind of thing work?
Yeah, it's like a lot of it, you see stuff. I always say like 85% of this job is emailing people and asking if you
Hmm.
can play. Like
Oh,
that's how I get a lot of my concerts. And then, like sometimes people will know me or people will recommend me for different jobs or with the auditions, like you see a listing, they send you excerpts, like little, it's like the orchestra greatest hits for the violin, and then you play all
ah,
that for the committee, and then there's different rounds and stuff. Yeah, so that's how the audition process basically works.
okay. And I'm sorry, I'm just checking the time because I want to make sure I get all my questions in. Um, so at this point, going forward, um, is it just a matter of just so you're at it's the Venice Symphony, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. So is that a does that take up a fair amount of your time, and do you have time for other things as auditioning and performing at other locations?
Yeah, it's really nice. I really love the job there because it's not a full-time orchestra, but we play maybe about 2 times a month, or like we have like, or it's 2 weeks a one month, 1 week a month. They treat me so well there. I couldn't be happier. Yeah, I have a lot of time to do kind of other concerts, other endeavors and stuff. Yeah, it's about protecting the time. That's the
Yeah.
most important. No, not trying to, because there's always a balance. Like you want to accept a lot of gigs, but you're always thinking about which job will make me better.
Hmm.
Like you have to make money, and that's really important. And I'm so lucky that with the Venice job and then the other orchestra I work for sometimes in San Antonio, that for me it's enough to feel stable. But then it's like you're always tempted by I'm always tempted by, oh, I could do one more gig, I could do this other thing, I could like keep doing this, but I'm like, I want to be at my best for everything. I want to be able to give 100% to everything.
So, do you have certain goals at this point or a certain and I know that as an artist that you may some people say I want to do this by this and this a time or get to there or work for that organization or others may not and take people may take it as it comes. What is it like for you? What do you
Yeah.
think of when you look forward?
Well, I mean, for me, the goal always is to I have this saying that I say that's like today more than yesterday, which is like basically I want to play better today than I played yesterday. Every single day. I have to. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That has to be the baseline. So that's the general daily goal for me. And I think for me what I want to do, of course, I will love to win a job in a major orchestra, and right now I've just started. I'll be taking one of my first orchestra auditions actually in a couple of months, and I'm
Okay, wonderful.
really excited. I'm really like looking forward to being able to give it my best shot. One of my longtime mentors is actually in that orchestra and asked me to audition, so I felt like very grateful that for his belief in me. Yeah, so that's definitely like a goal of mine to win a job. Of course, it would be amazing, and I want to play as much as I can, like recitals and stuff, and yeah, just to be able to keep making great music with great people and great audiences. It's like it's the best thing in the world for me.
Do you have certain styles or types of music that that's your favorite now? Because I think as an artist, you go through phases, right? So at certain points, a certain thing is always in your head, and then it might change and move on to something else. So, is there something like that today? And is there something in your future that a style or a type of music that you really want to work on?
Yeah, I think right now I'm really enjoying. I mean, for me, Prokofiev is always one of my favorite
Hmm.
composers because, you know, he has this way of configuring the notes and the sounds and just the landscape of the piece. It's just a little bit weird in
Okay.
such a amazing, delicious way. And I love that stuff. That stuff for me, it's like, it makes me feel emotions that I don't get in regular life. And I think when someone can make you see an entirely different color, that's a miracle. I love the music of Prokofiev. He's always like up there for me. Right now I've been doing a lot of work in like ballet orchestras or opera orchestras. I love the opera. I've always loved the opera, and for me, that's honestly one of the biggest reasons I am still a professional violinist today because I heard the great opera singers performing. I was lucky to grow up very close to a wonderful opera company where I actually play now. But like it's just like I heard a human making the most beautiful noise, just somebody with their voice. I'm like, that's a miracle. Like that they're able to make that sound. I want to make that song and I can't sing, but I can play the violin. So it was like something that
Mhm.
always encouraged me. And like, it's funny because the music I listen to is very different from the music I play. Like right now, as you know, I love like EDM, like Dead Mouse, and I've recently gotten into listening to Wolfpack, I love that sort of like chill vibe, but like emotional vibe. So I don't know. I think it complements, what I do, in the practice room too, on the
Okay.
stage.
And it's going to be fun to watch you do all sorts of different things and evolve and do other things as well, I'm sure. We have a few minutes left, so I'm just going to mention that Liana, the beautiful Liana, is also a model in her spare time when she can fit it in between all her music. And I'm sure there'd
Mhm.
be great demand if we could squeeze it into her schedule. So
Yeah.
tell us, what you like about that. Is it fun for you? And I'm sure it's kind of limited by because of all the other things you need to do. Um, but what's that been like?
Oh, it's just been such an amazing way of like having another kind of artistic expression. Like,
Hmm.
something I really love about modeling is like you get to go to really cool places. Like we've gone to some cool places, and it's
It's
just
true.
like I would never have gotten to go to the Vasquez Rocks, were it not for that shoot. And it's just like you can create something that, with music, it's kind of like you play and then the sound's gone. The performance
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
gone. Modeling, you can get a great shot and you have it forever. I mean,
That's true.
for me,
Very
that's
true.
really empowering. And, it's just like something for me that, like, when I'm on the road, sometimes people will hit me up, if I happen to be in the city, and then we'll do a shoot, we'll sneak, like, when I was in San Antonio the last time, it was such a tight schedule there, with
Hmm.
everything at the orchestra. I booked like a couple of sunrise shoots because I was like, I know that's the only time for sure that they can't schedule me for rehearsal because everyone's so sleepy.
Uh-huh.
So we would be up into like, 1 or 2 a.m. because, everyone
Wow.
would hang out after the concert, um, because that's a big part of the job too, is like, hanging out with your colleagues, getting to know people. And then I'd be in bed by like 2 or 3, up at 5
Up
to
at
do
five.
makeup,
Crazy.
hair, but I felt great because I was doing stuff that I loved. So I honestly felt like so energetic, 2 hours of sleep a night, I can't do that forever, like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I will sleep for like 12 hours and then I'll
Understand.
be totally restored.
Yep, I'm an old man. I can't do that anymore either. So there you go. Well, listen, unfortunately, we're about to run out of time. So I have so many more things I'd love to ask you and talk about, but we'll have to save that for another time.
Until
So
next
thank you. It's
time.
been great.
Thank you.
I love this because I get to ask questions and, maybe talk about things. Even hanging out, we wouldn't really touch on all these topics. So
Mhm.
it's really wonderful to hear what your life has been like and, how you view things and where you're going. So yeah, looking forward to doing it again. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. This was so fun. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you for being here. Take care.